I discovered something horrifying about my brother. It's too late to stop now. My name is James, and for most of my life, I thought I knew my family inside and out. I grew up with my brother, Mark, who was a couple of years older than me. From the outside, we were a typical family, normal parents, average jobs, no major drama. But that was before I stumbled upon something I was never supposed to find. It all started on an ordinary day, or so I thought. I was going through some old family photos in our attic. Boxes of memories that my parents had shoved into the corner years ago, forgotten. As I sorted through them, I found a small box with a faded label. It wasn't one of those typical family keepsakes. There was something strange about the box, like it didn't belong in the attic at all. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside were old, weathered documents. Some looked like official papers, others like personal notes. At first, I couldn't make sense of them. But then, one page caught my eye. It was a police report from many years ago, one that mentioned a missing person. As I read further, the name of the missing person sent a chill down my spine. It was someone I knew. Someone close to me. It was Mark's name. Not just as a missing person, but as a suspect. My hands trembled as I tried to process what I was reading. The police report detailed how Mark had been involved in a series of strange disappearances when he was younger. But that was impossible, right? I had grown up with him. We had spent countless hours together as kids, as teenagers, even as adults. I thought I knew him better than anyone. But I had no idea about this. Why had my parents never mentioned this? Why had they kept it hidden? And more importantly, why had Mark never told me? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I needed answers. I decided to confront him, but something told me this wouldn't be a simple conversation. Now, I had a sinking feeling that I was about to uncover something much darker than I could ever imagine. The next day, I waited for Mark to come home. He had been working late at a new job recently, but he'd promised me we'd hang out, like old times. I tried to act normal, but the police report kept replaying in my mind. My stomach churned as I paced the living room, waiting for him to walk through that door. When he finally did, he looked tired but smiled like nothing had changed. We exchanged the usual greetings, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. His usual easygoing nature seemed forced. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe I had already started noticing the little things that never seemed to add up. I decided to confront him then and there. "Mark, I found something yesterday," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. His smile faltered, and I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of guilt, maybe fear. He tried to brush it off. "What do you mean? What did you find?" I didn't waste time. "The box in the attic, the police report, that says you were involved in disappearances, you were a suspect." For a moment, there was silence. Mark's face went pale. I watched as the colour drained from his skin, his eyes darting nervously. This wasn't the reaction I expected. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't brushing it off either. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and shaky. "James, you don't understand. There's so much more to it than that." I wasn't sure whether to be relieved that he was admitting something or terrified by how he said it. My mind raced with questions. "What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me?" Mark took a deep breath, clearly struggling to find the words. "I didn't want you to know. You wouldn't believe me. I've tried to forget it, but it's been following me my whole life. There's a reason I've kept away from the family, James, a reason I never told you everything." I felt the weight of his words high in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. What could possibly be so bad that he'd keep it from me for all these years? "I don't know if I can explain it right now," he continued. "But if you want to know the truth, you need to come with me. There's no turning back once you know. Are you ready for that?" I froze, my mind racing. The truth? What was he talking about? But one thing was clear: I couldn't back down now. I had to know what had been hidden from me for so long. "I'm ready," I said, my voice more confident than I felt. Mark's expression darkened, and he nodded slowly. "Then get in the car. We need to go somewhere." Somewhere. What was this place? Why was it so important? I had no idea, but deep down, I knew that whatever he was about to reveal would change everything between us forever. I just didn't know how. The drive was long, and silence stretched between us like an impenetrable wall. Mark was visibly tense, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. I could feel the weight of the unspoken truth in the car suffocating me. Every so often, I would glance at him, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I wanted to ask him 100 questions. What was this place? What was so dangerous about the truth? But I held back. If he wasn't ready to speak, then I wasn't going to push him. We drove through areas I didn't recognize, the landscape becoming more desolate as we moved farther from the city. It was past midnight now, and the streets were eerily empty. The only sounds in the car were the hum of the engine and the occasional screech of tires as Mark took sharp turns. Finally, we pulled into a dirt road that seemed to lead nowhere. Mark slowed the car, turning off the headlights. The surrounding woods were thick and dark, the kind of place where the trees seemed to close in on you, cutting off the outside world completely. "We're here," Mark said quietly, his voice barely audible over the engine's rumble. I looked around, confused. There was nothing here, just an abandoned cabin, its windows dark and shattered, the wooden structure sagging with age. It looked like a place someone would have forgotten about years ago. My heart was beating faster now. This wasn't just some old secret Mark had been hiding, this was something much more sinister. Mark turned to me. I know this is hard to believe, but everything you've known about me, about our family, it's all a lie. I frowned, trying to understand. What do you mean? What are you talking about? He took a deep breath, looking like he was steeling himself for what he had to say next. You remember when we were kids and we used to play in the woods near here? You always thought it was just a game, but there's something out there, something we have been trying to hide for years. It's why I can never go back to those woods. My mind was spinning, trying to piece together what he was saying. What's out there? Mark, what are you hiding? He swallowed hard and looked away, as though ashamed of what he was about to confess. I don't know if I can even say it, James. It sounds insane, but people have gone missing in these woods more than you could ever imagine, and I'm the reason why. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. You're saying you've been involved in these disappearances, that you've hurt people? Mark shook his head violently, his face twisted with pain. No, I didn't want to, but there's something in these woods that changed me. It's a curse, James, one that has followed our family for generations. I've tried to stop it, I've tried to leave it behind, but it's never let me go. I could feel my pulse quicken, the fear rising in my chest. What are you talking about? A curse? This doesn't make any sense. I know it doesn't, Mark whispered, his voice trembling. But this is the truth. If you follow me into the cabin, you'll understand everything, but once you see it, there's no going back. You'll never be the same again. I looked at the cabin once more, my mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. What was waiting for me inside? What was so terrible that Mark had carried this burden all these years, all alone? I had to know. I didn't want to, but I had to. I nodded slowly. Let's go. Mark didn't say another word as he got out of the car. He moved quickly, his steps heavy, almost as if he were trying to outrun something. I hesitated, my feet frozen to the spot. There was a knot in my stomach, an instinct telling me to turn around and leave. But it was too late for that. I had already crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Taking a deep breath, I followed him. My footsteps felt too loud in the silent night, each one echoing in the stillness, the woods around us alive with unseen sounds. The closer we got to the cabin, the more the air seemed to change darker, thicker, like the trees themselves were watching us. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't just entering a forgotten house, but a place where something ancient and malevolent had been waiting for us. Mark pushed open the creaky door, and it groaned as it swung inward, revealing a dimly lit interior. There was no electricity, just the faint light from a small lantern Mark had brought with him. As my eyes adjusted to the low light, I saw the inside was even more decrepit than the outside. The walls were lined with strange symbols crudely drawn, almost like they had been scratched into the wood by something desperate. I swallowed hard. Mark, what is this place? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the far wall and pulled back a rotting rug, revealing a trapdoor. My pulse spiked as he bent down, his hand shaking as he turned the rusty latch. The door creaked open with a loud screech, and Mark motioned for me to follow him. You need to see it, James. It's the only way you'll understand. I hesitated again, my mind racing. But Mark's expression was so hollow, so pained, that I couldn't bring myself to refuse. With a heavy heart, I stepped forward, the cold air from the hidden room creeping up to meet me. Mark led the way down a narrow staircase, and the smell of damp earth filled my nostrils as we descended deeper into the darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, we entered a small, cold chamber. The walls were made of jagged stone, the floor uneven and covered in moss. In the centre of the room, there was an old wooden chest, large, imposing, and completely out of place in a place like this. Mark stopped in front of it, his breathing shallow. This is it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The thing I've been running from my entire life, the curse that has haunted our family for generations. I looked at the chest, feeling my heart race even faster. What's inside it, Mark? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly opened the chest, the creaking sound reverberating through the small room. Inside was nothing. At first glance, the chest was empty. But as I stepped closer, I saw the faint outline of something inscribed in the bottom of the chest, something I couldn't quite make out. Mark's hand trembled as he ran his fingers over the markings. This is what they wanted, he said, his voice tinged with a mix of horror and resignation. The people who disappeared, they came here looking for power, for something that would give them control, but it's not power that can be controlled, it's a trap, and we, our family, are part of it. I reached out to touch the chest, my fingers brushing against the symbols. Suddenly, everything seemed to grow colder, darker, and I felt a sharp pain in my head. My vision blurred for a moment, and I stumbled back, gasping for air. Mark turned to me, his face now twisted with fear. It's too late now, we've disturbed it, there's no going back. I felt the walls closing in. My chest tightened, my heart racing. Mark, what are you talking about? What did we disturb? But his eyes were wide with terror, and I realized whatever it wasn't just a curse. It was something alive, something ancient. And it was waking up. The floor beneath us began to tremble, and a low, rumbling sound filled the air, as if the very earth was groaning in pain. The symbols on the chest began to glow faintly, casting an eerie light across the room. And then, from the darkness in the corners of the chamber, I heard a voice. It was low, guttural, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You should not have come," the voice whispered. "Now you belong to me." I froze, my blood running cold. Mark looked at me, his eyes wide with horror. "We've awakened it," it's here, "and there's no way out." The ground trembled again, and I nearly fell to my knees as the walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The voice continued to echo, growing louder, more insistent. I looked at Mark, desperate for some kind of explanation, but his face was a mask of terror. He was no longer the brother I thought I knew. He was just a man trapped in something much bigger than himself, something that had taken control of his life long before I came to understand what was happening. "Mark, what is that?" I shouted, my voice trembling. He backed away from the chest, his feet stumbling as though the ground beneath him was unstable. His face twisted in agony. It's the curse of the family, James. It has nothing to do with us anymore. It's never been about us. It's about it. The thing that's been buried here for centuries. The thing that calls to us." I could hardly hear him over the rising noise in my head, the voice, the earth shaking, the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to fill every inch of the room. Every breath I took felt like it was drawing in more of the darkness, choking me with the weight of something far older than time itself. "You should have never come," the voice whispered again, its tone colder now, almost mocking. "You were too late. I'm free now." I looked around, my eyes wide with panic. Was there a way out? The stairs behind us had vanished, replaced by a solid stone wall. The trapdoor above had slammed shut with a violent force. We were trapped. There was nowhere to run. Mark turned to me, desperation written across his face. "We can't leave, not unless we do exactly what it wants, and that's the hardest part. It's never about what you want, it's about what it wants." "What does it want?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. Mark's lips trembled as he looked down at the chest. "The people who came before us, the ones who disappeared, they thought they could control it, they thought they could take its power, but it doesn't work that way. It uses you, it destroys you from the inside out, it feeds on fear on souls, and now it wants us." I felt a shock pang of fear shoot through me. "You're telling me this thing has been feeding on people all this time?" Mark nodded grimly. "Yes, then every time it's freed, it grows stronger, but there's one thing it needs, one final step." I felt my heart drop. "What final step?" His eyes locked with mine, his voice barely a whisper. "You." The room seemed to close in around me. The air grew heavier, suffocating. My body felt like it was being pressed down by some invisible force, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I looked at Mark, horrified. "What do you mean, me?" "It needs a soul, the last piece to complete the ritual," Mark whispered. "It's always been the youngest in the family, the one who doesn't know, the one who doesn't understand." My breath hitched in my throat as the weight of his words sank in. I realized, in that moment, what he meant. The curse wasn't just about the family. It was about the sacrifice, the one person who could be taken to complete whatever ritual it required. The voice boomed now, its tone commanding, powerful. "You are mine." The walls of the chamber seemed to vibrate, the symbols on the chest glowing brighter, burning into my retinas. I tried to step back, but my legs felt heavy, like I was wading through thick mud. Mark was shaking now, his eyes wide with terror. "James, you have to run, you have to get out of here, or it will consume you." But it was too late. The shadows in the room seemed to come alive, swirling around me, pulling at my limbs. I felt something cold touch my neck, a coldness that seeped into my very bones, and for the first time in my life, I realized there was no escape. "You will serve me," the voice hissed, and everything around me seemed to fall away. The room, Mark, even my own body, they were all fading into darkness. I screamed, but it was useless. The darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud. And then, just as everything went black, I heard one last thing. "Welcome to eternity." And then there was nothing. I don't know how long I was unconscious. Time, or whatever it was that ruled this place, didn't make sense. The last thing I remember was that suffocating darkness, the voice claiming me as its own, and then everything just stopped. But I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. The first thing I noticed was the smell stale, damp, like something had been rotting here for centuries. I couldn't see clearly at first. My eyes were blurry, but when I blinked a few times, I realized I was in a dark, stone room. The walls were jagged, uncut stone, and the floor beneath me was cold and uneven. I tried to move, but my limbs felt heavy, like they were weighed down by invisible chains. Panic shot through me. I tried to scream, but my throat felt raw, as if I had been choking for hours. I was trapped. But where was Mark? Was he still alive? Suddenly, I heard a low, gravelly voice, and I froze. He'd woken up at last. It wasn't the same voice I had heard before. This one sounded older, more sinister. The air around me grew colder, and I saw a figure move toward me from the shadows. The figure was tall, draped in tattered robes, its face hidden beneath a hood. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My body refused to obey, my muscles locked in place. The figure stepped closer, and I could feel the weight of its presence pressing against me. It reached out a bony hand, its fingers long and spindly, almost skeletal. "You don't remember, do you?" the figure asked, its voice like the scraping of nails on stone. I swallowed hard, my mind spinning. "Remember what?" The figure tilted its head slightly, as if amused. "You're the one who will finish the ritual, the last piece, the one who will give your soul freely, willingly." I gasped. It was happening. The thing in the woods, the curse, the trap, it wasn't just about Mark. It had always been about me. I had been chosen for the moment I stepped into that cabin. My stomach twisted in horror as the truth began to sink in. The ritual hadn't been completed, and now I was the final piece. My soul was the price. I tried to struggle, to break free from the invisible force that held me in place, but it was no use. The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You thought you could escape. You thought you could run away, but there is no escape, not from what we are. The family curse has claimed its own, and you belong to it now. You've always belonged to it." Tears welled in my eyes. No, I don't belong to anyone," I shouted, my voice cracking. The figure stepped closer, its cold fingers grazing my cheek. "You don't understand. You've been a part of this since you were born. You just didn't know it. All of you. Your family, your bloodline. It's all connected to me." I struggled harder, my breath coming in ragged gasps. You're not my family," I screamed. The figure's face finally emerged from the shadows. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, with veins running beneath the surface like blue rivers of ice. Its eyes were black, hollow voids that seemed to suck in the light around him. It was not human. It had never been human. "I was once," it whispered, its voice a low hiss. "But that was before the curse, before I became what you see now. And I've waited so long for this moment. Your family has fed me, and now it's your turn." A wave of terror crashed over me, but I refused to give in. I wasn't going to let it take me. Not like this. With a burst of adrenaline, I forced myself to move, to push against the unseen force holding me. I wasn't sure how I did it, but somehow I was able to stand. My legs trembled beneath me, but I made my way toward the wall, desperate for anything that might help. I spotted something, a piece of broken stone, jagged and sharp. Without thinking, I grabbed it, using every ounce of strength I had left to swing it at the figure. The figure screeched, its form disintegrating into a cloud of dark smoke as the stone connected. For a moment, I thought I had killed it, but I was wrong. The smoke reformed, coalescing into something even darker, more monstrous. "You can't stop me," it hissed. "You can't run, you can't fight me. I am eternal, and soon you will be mine." I stumbled backward, my heart pounding, my body shaking. The reality of the situation was too much to bear. I was trapped in a nightmare, and the end was inevitable. But as I turned to face the figure, something inside me refused to give up. I wasn't done yet. I wouldn't let it take me without a fight. "I will not be your sacrifice," I shouted. But the voice just laughed, and I knew in that moment that nothing I did would stop it. The curse had already claimed me, and I was just another lost soul in its eternal grasp. The figure's laughter echoed in the dark chamber, a sound so terrible that it felt as if it were vibrating through my very bones. I could feel the air growing thicker, suffocating me. My breaths were shallow now, my vision beginning to blur. The cursed entity had me. It was only a matter of time before it took my soul, like it had done to so many others before me. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep fighting. My strength was slipping away, and the cold around me was unbearable. I could feel its presence closing in, its darkness seeping into my very being. It wasn't just a physical trap. It was something deeper, something that twisted at my mind and heart, leaving nothing but despair in its wake. But then something unexpected happened. A low, distant rumble echoed through the room, like the ground itself was shaking. The walls trembled, and for the briefest moment the figure paused, its dark eyes narrowing. It seemed almost confused. It let out a frustrated hiss and moved back as if it were retreating into the shadows. "What is this?" it murmured, its voice tinged with anger. "Who dares to interrupt?" I stumbled backward, my head spinning. The rumbling grew louder, more intense, and I realized it wasn't just the ground shaking. It was the very foundation of the place, cracking, splitting apart. The stone walls began to crack, the symbols that had glowed faintly now igniting with a blinding light. A sudden burst of light filled the room, blinding me. I covered my eyes, feeling an intense warmth spread through my body. For a moment I thought I might be dying, but the warmth didn't burn. It was comforting, like sunlight after a long winter. When the light faded, I opened my eyes and saw something I never expected. Mark stood before me. But he wasn't the same Mark I had known. His eyes were glowing, filled with a strange power that wasn't his. His body was surrounded by a faint aura, like he was part of something greater than himself. "Walker," I whispered, my voice hoarse. He didn't answer at first. Instead, he stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the figure that now seemed to recoil from him. "You shouldn't have done this," Mark said, his voice colder, more commanding than I had ever heard it before. "You thought you could take him, you thought you could claim his soul like you did with the others." The figure snarled, retreating into the shadows. You think you can stop me? You, who have been part of this curse for so long? Mark's expression hardened, his voice growing louder. I'm not the same as I was, and you'll soon understand why. You've been feeding off of my family for generations, but you won't feed off me anymore, not after what I've become. I watched in disbelief as Mark raised his hands. The glowing symbols on the walls flared brighter, pulsating with energy, as if they were answering his call. The very air seemed to vibrate with power. No, the figure hissed, its voice now panicked, desperate. You can't control me. You don't understand. But Mark's power was unstoppable. The walls around us began to collapse, pieces of stone and debris falling to the ground. The dark entity that had haunted my family for so long was losing its grip. It tried to fight, tried to lash out, but it was futile. The curse that had plagued us for centuries was finally breaking apart. And then, just like that, it was over. The figure screamed, its form dissipating into nothingness, like smoke being blown away by a fierce wind. The light from the symbols slowly faded, and the tremors in the ground ceased. The chamber was silent, save for the sound of my heavy breathing. Mark turned to me, his face no longer filled with fear or pain, but with a strange kind of peace. He looked free. I couldn't do it on my own, James, he said softly, his voice filled with a mix of regret and relief. I had to become something else, something more. I was too stunned to respond at first. My mind was still reeling from everything that had just happened. But slowly the weight of the situation settled on me. My brother, the man I had known my whole life, was no longer the same. He had become something powerful, something far beyond human. Mark reached out, his hand warm again to mine. We're free now, but the curse, it won't be forgotten. You'll be safe now. It's over. I nodded, still processing the enormity of it all. As the dust settled around us, I realized one thing: life would never be the same. Mark had saved me, but at a terrible cost. And as we walked out of the crumbling ruins of the cursed place, I knew that the world I once knew had been forever changed. The curse was gone, but the scars would remain. And now we had to live with the truth of what had happened. But in the end, the most horrifying part of it all wasn't the curse. It was the fact that it had always been with us. The darkness had always been part of our family.